50 years next month will be the 50th anniversary, is that right, of the March on Selma. All right. And if you've seen the movie, you know that there's a song that's associated with the movie. We would like to do our version of that song.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. 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 Oh, glory.
Glory. Hands to the heaven, no man, no weapon formed against yes, glory is destined. Every day women and men become legends. The sins that go against us can become a blessing. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom's like religion to us. Justice is just a position for us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son dies, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistant is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. And when it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, but we stand up. Shots, we're on the ground. The camera pans up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory.
Glory. Glory.
Oh, glory.
Glory.
Now the war isn't over. Victory isn't won. But we'll fight on to the finish. Then when it's all done, we'll cry glory. Ooh, glory. We'll cry glory. Ooh, glory.
Selma's now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of the crowd. They marched with the torch. We're going to run with it now. Never look back. We done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, he rose to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was a people. The enemy is lethal. King became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing. Our music is a cut that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream he had an epiphany. Right now we right the wrong throughout history. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory, the coming of the Lord. My eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory.
Glory.
Glory. Oh, glory.
Glory.
Oh, glory.
Glory.
Ooh.
Glory.
Ooh.
Glory. Glory.
When the war is won, when it's all said and done, we'll cry glory.
Rana, you're
Hatep Jose.
Uncle Job Seneb.
Amen Rahatep. Whoa, 33 of you, Zay. And I show Mama Celeste and Baba Bill doing the affirmation. If you are both there, would you please come forward? Hello, thank you.
We will know God's truth to be free and self-determined.
Creator, help us to
remember the humanity, the glory, and suffering of our ancestors, and to honor the struggles of our elders.
Let us strive to bring new vision and life to our people. Let there be peace and harmony among us.
Let us be loving,
sharing, and creative. Let us work, study, and listen so we may learn, teach, and cultivate self-reliance.
Grant us power, O Holy One, as we struggle to resurrect our hearts and homeland.
We will raise our children according to the needs of our nation, with discipline, patience, devotion, and courage. We will strive to be the living models of the new direction of our people.
We are an African people.
We are children of God. Ashe.
You're on mute, Sister Rana.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Amun Rahatep Baba Bill. He's gone again. Okay. Next, next, we're going to have a song brought to us by the Sounds of Mott. Sounds of Mott, please come forward and bring the music, bring the spirit. Ashe, 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 I'm sipping that tea. Everybody sip your tea with me. Sip your tea or your coffee. You guys are so quiet this morning, but that's okay, because I think the spirit can come quietly too. Spirit will sneak up on you when there's nothing going on, when it's no bells and whistles and whatever. Spirit will come quietly. So I'm gonna be quiet with you, or I'm gonna do my Rana's best attempt at being quiet. That's what we're gonna leave that at.
It sure came to us in that video. But I thought it was
Yes.
gonna be the sounds of my aunt.
Yes, well, I did too, but you know what? Baba Jeff is orchestrating. And as long as Baba Jeff is in charge of the music, we are going to have something nice. And I agree with you that was a very nice selection. And
Yeah.
that's how we're gonna work with that.
Excuse me.
I give a big ashe for Baba Jeff being on this crew and making things happen.
Excuse me, that was the sounds of my, that was Baba David's instrumental version of the sounds of my, and I was asked to put some images to that, and I did so.
And like I said, Baba Jeff is on the job and orchestrating, and I appreciate it. So there we go. That's very cool. And you know, like and see how Ra works, because that's in tune with what I was just saying, in that it's not always going to be the horns and the lights and the sirens. We took the words out of that. We kept the music, gave you a visual, put you on a different vibe, right? There's all kind of vibrations that are happening out here, and I for one am with that. I am actually bringing hey there. I am actually bringing the historical tribute today, and the historical tribute we do here at Woze as a tribute to person or persons who have contributed in the struggle of something to our people, our communities, our culture, families, some part of our legacy. We like to keep 7 to 10 generations of our history alive in the hearts and minds of our people. We realize that a people without a sense or understanding of their history are very likely to be a people without a future, right? You got to start from the roots. You don't start from the upper leaves in the tree. We also know that as Africans, we are a spiritual people, and that we are at our greatest, and we've been shown that we are in our strongest and most creative forms when we are closest to the Creator. And what comes to my mind with that is always reflecting back on the pyramids and those things in Kemet, that they were on track and with Mott, and that was a daily minute by minute, second by second practice, and people are still astounded at what was able to be achieved during that time. So what I want to do now is this tribute that I'm doing. It's kind of about a couple of different groups of people. One is a group of people that were able to recognize, you better recognize. One was about the people who actually went through the event. And then the other is about another group of people who we are fortunate to have many of these people in our congregation. And some are more vocal than others, but there may be more here than we think about on a day-to-day basis. And I'd like to shine the light on them because, and we'll see if you guys can figure out what group of people I'm referencing, but in their profession, they're often the butt of jokes about what it is that they do. But there are a lot of people in this field who do good and do good works and are there to support our people. So here's my presentation and some information. And I don't do visuals. I didn't do well with that. I don't do it. All visual you can have is me. So I hope you have a pen and a paper, okay? So this came from St. Louis on the Air. St. Louis on the Air did this broadcast in February of last year, and it was with regard to Memorial Plaza in downtown St. Louis. And basically, there was a I can't get the word right out of my mouth right now, the sculpture that was being in progress at the time, which was going to be the anchor in downtown St. Louis for what they called freedom suits. And so before emancipation, before the Civil War resolved slavery's questions with a bloody finality, enslaved men and women turned to the courts. And it wasn't just Dred Scott. The courthouse in St. Louis saw an estimated 400 of what they called freedom suits in the half century between the Louisiana Purchase and the Emancipation Proclamation. So 400 freedom suits. That's quite a few suits in what actually at the time was a smaller court. 2 decades ago, handwritten records of the litigation were stumbled upon almost pretty much by accident by St. Louis Circuit Judge David Mason. For Mason, who is himself the descendant of enslaved people, that discovery then set off a quest for knowledge and a question to know more and also action. So in this interview on February 22nd, I think the interview was actually February 22nd, they talked about the new memorial on St. Louis on the Air, the radio show. And it said that it really took their interest in knowing more about the whole event and led them to deciding they needed to memorialize that event, and that event being those freedom suits, and that so people would pay attention and know more about it. So thanks to Mason, those lawsuits were being commemorated. Again, I'm speaking in the tense of in February of 22. They were being commemorated, and that a committee of lawyers had been raising funds through the St. Louis Bar Foundation in order to commission a work by Preston Jackson, who was a sculptor who was based in Peoria, Illinois. And his sculpture was to debut in June of 2022. And it was a part of $1 million project east of the Silver Courts building in St. Louis. And they were very much looking forward to people seeing Jackson's work, which depicted an enslaved woman approaching the court building. And they thought that they wanted it to be such a thing that spoke to people that it would possibly even evoke people to hold classes and talk about it more and get more of an understanding of what is this about? What is this in reference to, so that they can learn more about these freedom suits. The memorial was going to include the names of enslaved people who had filed suits. And sometimes there was only a first name, because as we know, several times that was all that people had was a first name. Even so, the suits made it very clear that those men and women were not just, as he said, passive lambs led to slaughter. These were people who fought. These were people who risked their lives. They not only understood the essence of humanity, he said, which was to drive to be free. He said, and I quote, "They were willing to take on the risk of dire consequences, not only what their owner might do to them on the plantation there in town, but also perhaps selling them down the river as a troublemaker or what have you into more horrible conditions that were in Louisiana and Mississippi." That it took a lot of guts to get away, find a way away, get to court. You may or may not be there for a minute or hours or a couple of days or whatever the case might be. But it was a very bold thing to do during that time. The end result was that both Mason and Venker, who were the people in this conversation on the air, said that they hope that lawyers can take an inspiration from the attorneys who were almost always working pro bono, who fought on behalf of the enslaved people. So as you see, I'm not just talking here about the still enslaved people who were going to court, which is kind of funny because it's like, if they were still enslaved, how were they even going to court? They figured that out. You can read more and find that out for yourself. But the attorneys who were willing to take them on and take their cases on, and like they said, very often pro bono. It's not like these people came in with briefcases of money and said, you know, figure this out for me. And they also went on to say, quote, "Lawyers, I hope and pray as they walk by that memorial on their way to and from court, that they get a sense of the fact that in order for our democracy to be truly protected, those big courthouse doors must always be open to the most disenfranchised people that can possibly come to those doors. That's how we protect everything we've worked for in this country, that lawyers are at the forefront. And so now you see who that other group is that I'm referencing, and it's the lawyers. It's the lawyers who have been there. It's the Thurgood Marshalls. It's all of the others that we're aware of who very often fought for free, put themselves at risk. The people, the enslaved people themselves, who did not just say, okay, yasa, next thing, that they found ways to get to courts, to try to fight, to try to use the systems that were there, no matter how crooked those systems might have been. They tried to have help with the Black lawyers to get through those systems and use them. Also, if you want more information on freedom suits, they recommend Before Dred Scott, Slavery and Legal Culture in the American Confluence. It's 1787 to 1857. And again, that's, and I quote, Before Dred Scott, Slavery and Legal Culture in the American Confluence, 1787 to 1857. And I personally recommend that if you want to know more about Black attorneys and their plight, that you read Black Lawyer, Black Power, which is by our Nkechi and available to you. I don't know if she's on today or not, but just to say that, you know, the lawyers and people who are involved in the legal system are definitely a part of who has helped us and who continue to help us to fight through some of these systems, these politics, these organizations that are put in place to put laws and little hidden things in place to keep us from succeeding. So that's my historical tribute for today. And I also want to give thanks to Baba Hale, who sends me information and helps me to find information to be able to present to you. I hope this was useful to some of you. I hope you took notes. Ashe. And I'll say, back to you, Rona. And so now we're actually going to go back to Baba Jeff for another song, some more music. Baba Jeff.
We Beautiful.
Oh my goodness. See, now you're just
Ashe.
showing out, Baba. Now you're
Nice.
just showing
Okay.
out. That's okay. I don't mind.
Awesome.
That was cool. Thank you. Your library always impresses and
I just want to say that that's Mama Fania suggested that. She found that and she reached out to me and suggested I play that. So thank you to Asante Sana, to Mama Fania.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Karibu.
And thank you to Mama Fania and all of us as we see and hear things and it moves us and it touches us in a way that we feel like that is something worthy of being shared with the community for us to honor whomever it might be. Please do pass that information along, whether it's directly to Baba Jeff or whether it's to one of the ministers or coming to a production meeting on Saturday so that we can get that and continue to grow our library that we have of music for our Sunday celebrations and for other events as well. This is how we grow our library. So thank you very much, Mama Fania, for sharing. I do appreciate that. Next, we're going to have our litany of sacrifice. And I show that we are going to come forward, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. And also Baba Desmond, I believe this says. You know, I have on trifocals.
Baba
I
Damani.
cannot see this writing. I don't know which way I'm supposed to look through trifocals, you guys, but work with me, Ashe.
Baba Damani, you're with us?
Oh, Baba Damani, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. My phone ringing at the wrong time. It probably ring again. Ole, grand rising, everybody, and wonderful service. Okay, it's a time in our service where we get to practice what I call Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to make sure our two houses of worship remains financial sovereign. So here we go. Litany of sacrifice. Save us, O Holy One, by your name. Vindicate us by your might. Hear my prayer, divine protector. Listen to the words of my mouth. How can we pay the Holy One for the gifts that have been given to us? We will lift up the cup of salvation and call upon the God of our ancestors. We will fill our vows to our Creator in the presence of all our people. Gladly we bring our sacrifices to you. We praise your name, O Amun Ra. Go ahead, it's good. Emoji, unity. We should strive to maintain unity in family, community, nation, and race.
Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. We shall define, name, create, and speak for ourselves.
Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We should build and maintain our communities together. Our brothers and sisters' problems shall be ours to solve together.
Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Together, we shall build and maintain our own businesses and together profit from them.
Nia, purpose. We shall make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community and the restoration of our people to our traditional greatness.
Kuumba, creativity. We shall do as much as we can in any way we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it.
Imani, faith. We should believe with all our hearts in our God, our people.
And in the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Ashe.
Okay.
If we could just take a moment for prayer, please bow your heads. Mother, Father God, she who is of the Most High, the maker of all that is and shall be, the giver of all our needs, the knower of what is beyond truth. Hear our prayer as we offer what we can to show our devotion to the Most High. Hear this prayer that comes from all who give to support the physical needs of Wose Community Church. Hear this prayer because it's part of our dedication to fund Wose's needs and continue its work for the future. Hear this prayer for the litany of sacrifice and see it as a earthly monetary contract to support our church, our God, by our word. In this litany, each of us agree that we have always had a connection to Amun Ra, a connection that strengthens us as we follow the Nguzo Saba and work the 42 declarations of innocence, I say work because saying and doing are two different things. Those with a plan succeed so much more often than those who don't, and that is the work. If we make the proclamation to sacrifice, what's the next step? Making the plan to do so. Amun-Ra has given us tools that are logical, tools that allow us to organize chaos and move things into perceptible batches that we can deal with, work with, label, use, change. Knowing the intricacies of our own income is no different. How much do we earn? What and where do we spend our money? Where are we willing to cut back on things so that we can sacrifice and give to the church and to God? We must confront, I think, the most overwhelming thought of all. After making a plan to sacrifice, can I keep my word to follow through? This litany proclaims that each of us, as God and with community involved with our giving, this litany in its words helps to create the relationship that it is others as well as God that will help us to keep our word. Sometimes when we make these plans and we're not successful, getting a second opinion is very necessary. And if you don't have a listening ear open to you, you always have the ministers of Wose who will happily listen, keep it confidential, and help to give you the motivation to continue to sacrifice. It's our relationship with God and with community that makes life unexpected, gives us unexpected turns, all so that we may be successful in the end if we work our plan. Our litany of sacrifice, like so many aspects of the way, it's like a statue that has continually existed, that gives us solemn direction, that reminds us of where we stand and how we make our connections with Amun-Ra. To sacrifice, you got to reach in, you got to reach out, and most of all, you've got to reach up to Amun-Ra. Ashe, Amen, Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe, oh, Ashe. Oh, you know, I'm so feeling the vibe of today. I'm so loving how, without communicating with each other through the week or the days before Sunday, that very often we find each other in the same space, just kind of flowing. Very often we find each other having words and comments about the same type of energy or the same things being in common mind, and it just feels good when it happens that way. I think Michelle's voice could make me feel that kind of Wusam feeling today, no matter what. Her voice just has that quality. Next up is going to be Minister Amadi. I'm very excited. Minister Amadi has not been on the schedule, at least in a few months, and I'm always grateful that he accepts the invitation. I'm always excited to hear what he's bringing, because Minister Amadi is definitely active in the communities at large, active in the community where he lives, active in the communities where there are Black people. And he brings us information, things that we might not have been thinking of in whatever our little day-to-day circle is that we're running around in circles in, and takes us out into a bigger perspective of what's going on with Black and Brown people and what we need to be giving our attention to. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here. And I welcome you, Minister Amadi. Please bring the message.
Thank you, Minister Rana. I'm just so happy to be here. Feels like there's an echo. Is there an echo?
There is a little bit.
Well, I don't think it's coming from.
Everyone, please check your mics to make sure that they are on mute. The only person that we want to hear from in this moment or minutes is Minister. Mic check 1, 2.
Okay. Oh, that's better. I think a little better. Anyway, better enough for me to proceed. Wonderful service so far. It's just really a blessing and a privilege to be able to share with you, my WOSE community. Appreciate you so much, and it's just been a blessing to just have discovered this wonderful African community of like-minded individuals. And yes, there's a special vibe this morning. It feels good. It's a quiet vibe, and I'm kind of in that vibe too. So, it's amazing how we connect. And so, yes, I have a few things to share with you today. And I want to just thank those in my Nubia spiritual community who are here in support of me today. And that's Perry and Sharon. And I also see Foxy Brown, my sister from Carras. I haven't seen you in a long time. So good to see everybody. Good to look out. Whenever I speak, I always put it on gallery view because I like to look at you guys while I'm speaking, so we could all just really flow together. So yes, so I'm glad to share with you today. And so today, I'm going to talk about the role that you can assume in partnership with the divine, in co-creating your life experiences, co-creating in partnership with the divine. Just like for the Creator, this occurs through the power of your word, the power of your word to manifest itself from the invisible to the visible. Our African ancestors called that our ability to speak hekau, words of power. The Europeans called it magic. We can do this because we're not just human beings, but according to our African teachings, we are divine beings having a human experience. My title today is Standing on the Primordial Hill at Septepi, Speaking Your Word as Ra. I'm going to repeat that. It's kind of long. I'm going to repeat that, all right? Standing on the primordial hill at Septepi, speaking your word as Ra. That's what I'm going to be talking about. It's an invitation to you to become a force of nature by reenacting the divine drama of creation as articulated in the ancient Kemetic creation stories. When we invite the spirit of the ancestors and the Neteru, we are channeling that energy into our experience. So that's what you did when you did your libation, as you already know that, right? Traditionally, in the Black church, our people have sought to have a visitation of the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, which is a way in which they described a very African experience of visitation by the ancestors or Neteru. So today I'm talking about manifesting the power and spirit of Ra, the Creator, our first ancestor. Theophile Obenga, in his African philosophy, his book, African Philosophy, on page 541, speaks of Unter, NTR, nature, which is nature without the vowels. It is the aspect of the divine or sacred. Neter is the source of the sacred. Neter, that's the source. And Neteru, or the Neters, plural, are aspects of the sacred. For example, when we talk about Medu Neter, we're talking about the sacred writings. Medu is the writing, and Neter, Unter, is sacred. I call Unter, nature, the divine spirit. Ra is the divine mind, the creative force of nature. So I'm sharing some ideas with you today, some personal perspectives on things. That's what we're supposed to do, share with each other. My talk is about standing in power over your conditions as the creator Ra symbolically stood during what is called first occasion, when everything that exists today first came into existence. Western scientists call this the Big Bang. So when we talk about first occasion, we're talking about the Big Bang. Septepi means first occasion, or the beginning of the creation of time and space in the three-dimensional universe. I'm going to familiarize you with parts of various Kemetic creation stories. Jacob Carruthers, in his book, Essays in Ancient Egyptian Studies, on page 58 says, creation was the event that was the womb of all aspects of Kemetic life in time and space. The understanding of the conceptualization of this event is the key to articulating the African worldview as it is expressed in the civilization of Tawi, Kemet. This is Carruthers speaking. This idea of beginning is expressed by the phrase Septepi, the first time, or what we call the beginning. The idea of creation is expressed by the word Keper, or come into being. The conditions, properties, and processes that are necessary for existence, the good life, and eternity came into being the first time, which is Keper Septepi. Septepi is an important concept in African deep thought because African conceptualization of time is circular. The past, present, and future are all connected. What has happened can happen again. If we repeat the principle, going all the way back to Septepi, first occasion. Our work then is to discover the principle and apply it in our lives until we see the changes that we're looking for. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. And so even though you're muted, say with me, a change is coming. Ashe, ashe, a change is coming. African thought is symbolic thought. Many of us know that myths or ancient stories are both true and not true. They may or may not be historically accurate, but the principles they talk about are eternally true. When we look at things symbolically, we can see beyond the literal surface meaning to a deeper universal principle. In the Heliopolis creation story, Atum Ra is in the midst of the noon, the primordial waters. Atum begins by becoming, by projecting himself into existence, by distinguishing himself from the noon or the primeval waters. And many of us are familiar with this story, Ra emerging out of the primordial waters. This is what we do when we declare the truth. Per Carruthers, the idea of primeval waters is the uniformity of unceaseless movement. Thus, I'm reading from him, from the sea of eternal and limitless instability, a complete being establishes itself. Carruthers does not subscribe to the idea that creation emerged out of chaos, but rather out of balanced instability. I see it as a perfect idea emerging as divine mind, emerging out of nature, as the mind of nature. This is represented by the primordial hill, like the first mounds of dirt and mud that can be seen when flood waters of the Nile recede. The image of the scarab god Keper, representative of being and becoming, are used here. The pyramid text 1587 reads, Hail Atum Ra, hail Keperah, he who becomes from himself. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen and show this image of Keperah. Keper, there's Keper right there. And so we see what we're seeing here is, you see right there, there's the image of the deity with the beetle right there instead of the head. And then we see the picture of the beetle, Keper, pushing the sun over the horizon. And so what we have here then is an anthropomorphic representation of a spiritual idea. That's what you're looking at right there. It's an anthropomorphic spiritual representation, or representation of a spiritual idea. So that's Keper. So from the Book of Knowing of Creations, translated into the Hosea, page 5, I'm going to read. Thus said Ra, the Lord of all, Lord of the utmost limits. And you guys are familiar with this text. You know, we all read it all the time. After he had come into being, I am the one who comes into being as Keper and brings being into being. I raised up beings in the primordial waters as inert things. I found no place on which to stand. I formed it from the desire in my heart. I laid the foundation through Ma'at. Many were the beings that came from the commands of my mouth. I conceived it in my heart, and there came into being vast numbers of forms of divine beings as forms of offspring from them. All right, so let me just show you the image of so now we're going to look at the image of and so here's Ra right there on the right hand side, right? See with the sun there right there? That's again an anthropomorphic representation of a spiritual idea. So this is just for us to be able to focus on something, but the truth transcends the image. So we got to start beginning to think, not just literally, but symbolically. So that's Ra there on the right, and that's Ptah. I'm getting ready to read about Ptah now, but this is Ra, and there's Ptah. Okay, so now let me just. Okay, so that was and so what the idea of this reading is telling us is that thought is creative. That's basically, you know, we just had a story of an idea that thought is creative for us to be able to embody in our own lives. And from the Hosea, the creation of Ra as Ptah. It is Ra as Ptah, the most great, who has given existence to all divine powers through his heart, mind, and tongue. Thus it came to pass that the heart, mind, and tongue ruled all the other members through teaching that Ptah is within everybody as heart and mind, and within every mouth as tongue. And he thinks as heart and mind and commands as tongue, whatever he wishes. This is the power that we want to consistently invoke in our lives. So when we talk about the power of Ptah, we're talking about the power of the creative word. And we know that on the Shabaka stone, that was the earliest documentation of this idea that our word is creative. The earliest you're ever going to read is on the Shabaka stone, the Memphite theology. And so today, I want us to identify our inner Ra, our ability to create our experience and speak from that place of empowerment. Ra is the self-created one. He is self-created, which represents the fact that he is self-knowing. To the extent that you know who you are self-created. When you woke up to your African self, you had a new pep in your step, a new conversation, a new sense of empowerment, because you had found your center. You rejected the conditioning of those who would oppress you, and you chose yourself and the ways of your ancestors. You became self-determining. You embraced your ability to name yourself and define yourself in the direction that you want to go. We may not have all the answers, but at least our minds are free to choose to act in our own best interests and not in the interests of those who would oppress us. We ain't where we want to be, and we ain't where we're gonna be. But thank God, we ain't where we used to be. Ashe? Ashe. Now we must purpose in our heart to continue to evolve and learn to transform the conditions of our lives. This is through choosing an active partnership with the Creator, who at Wosei we call Amen-Ra. As we mature spiritually, we come to understand that the same Creator is known by many names and responds to all of them. When those of you longtime members of Wosei, who were part of the Baptist church out of which Wosei emerged, you prayed to Jesus Christ or to Jehovah, and your prayers were answered. When you chose to approach it from the African way, you began to pray to Amen-Ra, and you found that your prayers continued to be answered. Our conceptualization of the divine is continually evolving, and our ancestors understood that. And so their concept included Ra, Amun, Atum, Keper, Ptah, Amen-Ra, and other names. And so we must balance our own personal power as divine beings with the power of the infinite all-knowing mind of the Creator. We can see a lot through our unlimited potential as divine beings, but we can't see everything because we are having a human experience that limits our perception in a way, because there's always more going on than we can see. So I see us in a position where we're balancing our co-creative abilities as forces of nature in our own right and the mystery of the divine. It is always operating beyond our limited perspective. And so we have personal power to co-create our lives, but at the same time, sometimes we don't even know what we need, right? And so it's like, we have power, but yet, there's the mystery of us not knowing. So you can't just, we can't do everything, right? Although we have a limited ability to create. So it's a contradiction that we have to balance. That's what I'm talking about. When we step into our power, as co-creators of our own lives. So when we ask the Creator for the things we want, this is called a prayer of petition. But there's also another form of prayer called affirmative prayer, where you can affirm the presence of a power greater than your problem and accept the answer as already done. The prayer of petition and the prayer of affirmation are both valid approaches, and I see our work as balancing when to affirm the answer through direct acceptance and when to release the problem into the divine through petition and then acceptance. I see it as an art and science of co-creating our experience in partnership with the divine. So I'm sharing this approach for those of you who may not be familiar with it, because our ultimate charge is to live lives of self-examination. Somebody said that an unexamined life is not worth living. We always got to be questioning ourselves. We always got to be looking for the truth. Always got to be looking for the irrational thinking that we may have, but just questioning ourselves so that we can be the best self that we can become, that we are, or that we can become. So that we can embrace the truth wherever we find it and make it ours to the extent that we understand. And like I always say, if anything I say doesn't resonate with your spirit, just file it on the shelf of your mind for possible future consideration. Because your spirit knows the truth when it hears it or when it sees it. You must know yourselves, or we must know ourselves, to be forces of nature, operating with the full intention to witness the invisible reveal itself in physical form. This is what our ancestors did, going back to that first ancestor known as Ra, Keper, Atum Ra, Amun Ra, and Ra as Ptah. He doesn't have just one name because he is ever becoming, ever being born, developing into completion, moving out of sight, and then re-emerging like the sun each day. We too are ever becoming. Like the sun, we can't allow ourselves to become stagnant, but must be always ready to ascend to higher heights in our journey. We must be willing to flow with life, as we've heard mentioned already in this service, and dance with the currents that feel like they're going to sweep us away. Like the creative force of Ra, we can emerge from the unceasing waters that often surround us, that bring instability to our life circumstances. And we can establish a place to stand from which we can operate in power. The Bible puts it like this. It says, you shall decree a thing and see it come to pass. This is the kind of power I'm talking about. We have that ability, we have that capacity. Through the creative word, our ancestors came up with this concept. The primordial hill represents that exalted place from which we can look out at the world and into the infinite possibilities that exist for us. Our ancestors built mounds to represent that exalted place, which is also represented by their temples and by the capstones or benbens on the pyramids that were covered by gold so that they would reflect the sun. So I'm just going to show you a picture of that. Okay. So this is in a museum. This is a capstone, benben, from off the top of a pyramid that was, of course, stolen from Africa and put in a museum in Europe. But that's what this capstone, this tip right there of the mountain, that's what that represented. It represents the primordial hill from which the Creator spoke words of creation and spoke creation into being. And so the primordial hill represents an exalted perspective, but also a strong attitude. So you're exalted perspective, but also a strong attitude. We need an uncompromising and unapologetic edge if we want to triumph over the adversity that gets thrown at us on a daily basis, and to accomplish the monumental task of transforming the conditions of our lives and of our people. The primordial hill also symbolically represents our need to create that mental and physical space wherein we can do the creative work that we are here to do. By mental space, I mean that if we want to accomplish something, we must create an inner space of acceptance within ourselves of the idea of the thing that we want to experience in our lives. For example, if you want to find a job, you must create the room in your mind to accept the idea of you having that job. You might affirm, I accept my right and perfect job now. Then you must create physical time and space in your routine to work at getting it. So you got to create space on the inside and on the outside. That's the primordial heel. So primordial heel symbolizes our creating a space for an exalted perspective on your life, where you look out as a divine being at your experiences. From that space, you begin to obey the spirit within you and not the circumstances that surround you. Circumstances around you might say you should quit. The spirit within you says, keep on going, you can make it. That's what you gotta obey. It's like when you look from the perspective of the roof of a building, you can see much more than you can see from the ground floor. Now, speaking of attitude, somebody said, if your goodness doesn't have an edge, it's not goodness at all. You need that edge, that attitude, if you want to make a mighty difference in the world. You need to know who you are spiritually and culturally and what you stand for and believe in. You must be bold in expressing your unique way of being in the world with your own unique style in pursuing your dream. You need to know and project the idea that you are a winner, not a victim of circumstances. We need an attitude that allows us to speak an authoritative word to transform what appears to be limiting conditions and circumstances. That word is our Heka, our word of power. That attitude becomes our symbolic primordial heel, our place from which to stand and deliver. To know yourself as a spiritual being is to know that you are not separate from the Creator. I invite you to reposition your thinking and embrace that idea. As you become aware of the goodness inside of you, it will show up more in your experiences. And so, as you begin to step into this place of power, you're going to find yourself having to navigate the contradictions of life. And like Minister Rana said, it's like a flow. It's learning how to kind of go with the flow of life. It's like not just making things happen, but letting things happen. And knowing when to make them happen and when to let it happen, right? It's an art and a science. And so as challenges come your way, see yourself engaged in a dance with life. Stay present to what is happening, but create a song in your heart and an affirmation that you continue to declare, and your emotions will be uplifted. In the civil rights movement, they declared and sang, "We shall overcome." And they did, didn't they? And I just thought that was such a confirmation when that song was played, because I had already, was going to mention it in my sermon. And then I was like, wow, now I'm experiencing it, right? It's beautiful. It flows, right? It always works together when you do it the right way, And so it is very African to flow with the rhythms of nature and not be ruled by the clock or by your circumstances. This is the African way of being in the world. We flow with the rhythms of nature. Look to find a rhythm and a groove in whatever you're doing. Be patient and go with the flow. Dance with the ideas that come up in your head. Don't struggle for answers, but let the answers emerge. Don't make it a conflict. Too often we look at life as a conflict, a struggle. Don't make it a conflict, make it a dance. When you start feeling better about the things that's happening, start imagining what it will feel like to accomplish your goal. Continue to sing your song and do your dance. As you release your words into the law of reciprocity, also called karma, You will emerge from the unstable waters that surround you as Ra, the creative mind of nature, operating as you. Speaking your word and co-creating the world you want to live in. We can do that as long as we build on the foundation of Ma'at. You see, everything was built on the foundation of Ma'at. Everything was built on correct thoughts, correct words, and correct actions. And that's our heritage as Africans. You know, all African societies have a code of ethics, because we can't just be in the world doing things any kind of way. We got to do it the correct way. We got to do it the orderly way. That's who we are. And so as long as you do it the orderly way, things will work out and you will build, and you'll be building for eternity. And so I'm coming to a conclusion now. Our declaration to the universe should reflect the following eternal and divine idea, taken from the pyramid text. The idea that we are on a continuous path of ascension toward a greater expression of our divinity. It says, O Ra, I am you, and you are I. Rejoice at me and rejoice at my spirit, Ka. For if you shine in me, I will shine in you. Make me flourish, and I will make you flourish. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. I am the companion of the gods, the son of a god. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. I am the well-beloved son of Ra. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. I was begotten for Ra. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. I was conceived for Ra. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. I was born for Ra. I will rise and ascend up to the sky. Since Ra is the creative mind of nature, this means to me that this divine idea of spiritual sovereignty resides in all of us. And so, standing on the primordial hill at Sep Tepi, with an exalted perspective and a strong attitude, let us claim our power as co-creators of our experience. Let's speak an authoritative word based on the truth that we know about ourselves, that we are forces of nature in our own right. As it was in the beginning at Sep Tepi, so shall it be in the end. We are sons and daughters of light. Let us rise and ascend up to the sky. Ashe, 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 oh.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Oh,
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe, ashe.
That was for me. That was for me more than you.
Ashe. Oh. Baba Bill, come forward. Baba Bill, thank you so much, Minister.
Ashe.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes. Well, say, we are so glad to be blessed by Ra to come together today, to strengthen our spirits, to hear this wonderful message, to remind each other of how and why we come here to be together and strengthen each other, to continue creation, to continue the works of Amun-Ra. If anyone would like to join us in this work, now that you see how we conduct this work, how we bring forward our spirit, if you would like to join us, please reach out to one of our ministers, drop a line in the chat, raise your hand, draw some attention, drop an email or send an email, drop something in the chat, and we'll get back to you. Do I hear anyone who would like to join us? Those of you who are here, When you're not here, please reach out. Reach out to your friends, reach out to our community. Let everyone know what it is we're doing here. Let everyone know that we are a people of the way, and encouraging all to join the way. Ashe. Mr. Ronald?
Asheo. I have goosebumps here. And it's okay if nobody is coming on board today, because that's just more for me. So I'm because I got 2 scoops of Minister Amadi today. So whoever the person is that didn't step up, I'll take your scoop and mine today from Minister Amadi. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much. Thank you for, again, answering our call, for answering the invitation. Thank you so much for consistently bringing words, bringing spirit that allow us to think outside of our environments, because sometimes when you're in the same house and the same people in the same environment, the same people, that sometimes you can kind of get caught and your blinders start to get closer and closer to the side of your face. And I thank you that every time you come in, you just rip those blinders off and you say, hey, hello, here's some other flavor to go in that stew you brewing, to go in that gumbo. So I just want to say thank you for that. We are going to now have our song. Baba Jeff, lift every voice and sing. Everybody make sure that you are on mute. Feel free to sing along.
Every voice and sing till the heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Now rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, our new day begun. Let us march on till victory.
Found in the days when hope unborn hath died, yet with a steady hath not our will be free. Come to the place for